All right. Well, should we get to it?
I suppose.
Let's do
Yes.
it.
Does anybody have any announcements they would like to make that are not on the agenda?
I sent out a survey about having the Koha consortium meeting, the special interest group for consortium on a different date. And I sent it out before Thanksgiving to the consortium mailing list, and nobody responded. And I've got 6 responses now, and the number 1 response was, let's just skip the December meeting and move on to January. The second most popular response was, after I sent it out, I had to go to the doctor and I have a follow-up visit that day, so I can't be at that second choice meeting either. So I think we're just going to skip it and move on to January, which would be the 4th Thursday in January, which would be January 23rd.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I didn't get a chance to vote yet, but my vote was also going to be just to skip because I probably wouldn't have been able to make it anyway.
Yeah, and oh, I don't even remember what I was going to say, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
6 people responded. That's what I was going to say. 6 people responded, and that's usually more than the number of people that come to those meetings. So it seemed like a good choice.
Yep, I agree. Any other announcements? Seeing none, let's move on to new business. Jason and Fred are both here from the Education Committee, and they've been working on, well, I'll let you explain it.
So, yeah, the koha-US Education Committee has been hard at work planning a new event for you guys. So we are looking at pulling together a forum. We're calling it the Developing Koha Together Forum, which is meant to sort of organize us as users and developers together into a room where we can get to know each other better, learn from each other, and ask each other questions. The goal is to make us more comfortable with like there's no wall between developers and users. So we will have a survey going out that is just going to ask you, what do you want to ask each other? What do developers want to ask users? What do users want to ask developers? And that sort of thing. And we're hoping to have this on this. We're looking at coming up with a date at the December meeting, but we want to have it within the first quarter of the year. And if it's successful, we'll look at having it be a regular thing. So just wanted to give you all a heads up. That's what we've been working on, and to keep an eye out for that email with the survey. Fred, did I forget anything?
Don't think so. My part in the survey was saying, yeah, that looks good. I think I made one suggestion.
Okay. So let's move on to our next item. Voting on board and 2025 conference location. That is out as of yesterday. We did our week notice in advance, and now the vote is out. They'll be open for 2 weeks, so it will be closed 2 weeks from today. Since we started voting yesterday, I was just checking real quick to see how many results we have, and we have already 28 votes in, which is great. So that will be, I'll have to go through and verify membership, and I'll do all that stuff. But that's a great start for less than 24 hours to get that many votes in. But if you are a member and you need to vote still, you should have received that link in your email. John, I don't know if we've had any I know a couple of people said they were going to be last minute members so they could vote.
And I will be checking up on that. I just got back from vacation, so I haven't had a chance to look yet.
So we may need, if there's somebody that's not on that list, we may need to send them an individual email if they signed up since whenever you checked last.
And that is certainly possible. It's also possible that people have been unsubscribed from the members list automatically by their email provider. I've seen that happen a few times. So anybody that is expecting to have heard, contact me and I can confirm whether or not a link should have been sent.
Wonderful. Yeah. So please do that. I'm sure I will put, while George is talking about the governance meeting, I will put a link in there if you are a member, and I'll put a link in the chat in just a second for that.
John, sorry to interrupt. If they do contact you, what email should they use?
The financial manager at koha-US.org.
Okay. Thanks.
So George, I'm going to turn it over to you, see if we have any updates from governance.
Not really, because for two reasons. Number one, I didn't realize I was on the agenda because I just opened it when you said I was on it. And so I don't remember off the top of my head if there was anything really important at that meeting. I got sick the day after the meeting. I got really sick, and I ended up taking almost 2.5 weeks off. What I do remember is that there was a document that went out that Paul or Andrew was going to send out that related to what it is that this group is doing and trying to keep communication about what the group is doing open. It would have gone to the Koha mailing list, not the koha-US mailing list, but the Koha community mailing list. And we started discussing what the mission of a mission statement for the Koha, whatever we call it, foundation will be. And I advocated strongly to have a mission statement similar to the Python mission statement. The Python Foundation mission statement just pretty much says the Python Foundation is here to support people using and developing Python. You know, it's a very broad statement that actually is a statement. So that's about all we talked about, and I'm sorry I don't have better recollection of that, but I was falling into the flu when I went to that meeting. So my apologies there.
No,
If anybody has any questions about what's going on, or if you want to attend one of these meetings, they're open for anybody I think that they're open for anybody to come to them. It's just that only the people that are part of that steering group have, voting rights. So let me know if anybody has any questions about that. And thanks.
And how often are you meeting? Refresh my memory.
We're meeting about once a month. We're meeting again. Our next meeting is on the 16th of December. And I'm trying to look for my notes, which I can't find in Mattermost right now. But we did talk about some actions that people are going to take between the last meeting and this meeting. And the number one action, though, was to send that document out to the Koha community mailing list. So everybody that's on the community mailing list should have gotten it. If you didn't get it, if you want to know more about it, just email george@nichols.org and I'll make sure that it gets sent to you.
And George mentioned Mattermost. If you're not signed up for that, I know that there's been updates posted there as well.
So thanks for letting me speak off the top of my head. And sorry I didn't read the agenda beforehand.
No, that's
yesterday
fine.
was my first day back after being sick.
The agenda was created very recently.
Okay.
It was finished this morning. It was created earlier this week, probably yesterday. I don't even remember. So we do have a guest, but he did say he was going to be here a little bit later. So I'll just mention real quick we can do a little till Tomas is able to join us. We can do a little open discussion with bugs and things like that. But this will be my last meeting as president. So Andrew will be taking over in January, and I think we discussed at our, if you missed the last general meeting, we have to do a little conflict of interest wording that the board's going to work on, and will be sent out for approval separate from the vote for the board and conference location, just to clarify a few things. But I think it was pretty almost unanimously agreed that that Andrew should lead us next year, and I'm part of that agreement. So we'll have a pretty new board too. Andrew and Christy will be our only holdovers, and then we'll have a new board in January. So I just wanted to thank everybody for the past year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how these meetings look starting next year. So I don't know if you have there's no speech that you were expected to prepare, but if you have any comments, Andrew.
Yeah, I think my mission statement right now is, oh God, it's December. 2025 is like soon. Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Just
And I am breathing a sigh of relief that it's December. Christy?
so, yeah, when you mentioned the conflict of interest statement, which Wally and I did draft some
Oh,
stuff
cool.
for next week's board meeting, but so that's something that will eventually need to be voted on by membership.
Yes.
Just so okay.
Yeah, because I think we're gonna stick it in the bylaws, which would be the appropriate place. And any change to the bylaws requires a approval. So if you decide that, we shouldn't have any language spelling out conflicts of interest, you can all vote no on that one. But I don't think it'll be too controversial what we come up with, and should just help clarify things.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of like there's a lot of stuff out there for different types of nonprofit organizations and different levels of, like, none of us is like insider trading on, but there are things like, well, then, like, I started staring into the abyss of, like, well, what actually does constitute a conflict of interest with a very small user group where pretty much everyone's interests are, like, on behalf of. So I think the way we kind of wrote it is very specific to what happens for board roles and whether or not you can be in a board role, or if you need to disclose things if you're in a board role. Anyway.
Cool.
End of the ramble.
So we'll the board will finalize that language, and then we'll put it out for a vote soon after.
And the board meeting's open, so if any of you are sitting there
Absolutely.
thinking, I have deep
That's
thoughts about
true.
conflict of interest statements, please do come say hi.
George, did you have something?
yeah,
Okay. The other thing that will be happening is Christopher will be helping us as our admin switch over emails and things like that. So pretty soon here in the next in about 2 weeks or so, emails coming from the president will no longer be coming from me, and all that. Some of that has to be done after the election results are in, but some of that, since we have a few positions that are running unopposed, I think that we can make the assumption that, like, Chip, for example, is our incoming vice president. So so we'll go ahead and work on that. Okay, until Tomas is able to join us, which should be in about like 8 minutes or so, Well, let me do this. We have some Bywater people here, and didn't have a chance to look at the Monday minutes, but they're already talking about the next release. So maybe Bywater might have something to share about our next Koha release. If I could put someone on the spot.
I'm happy to start. So Nick and I did like a little hype video for Monday Minutes. I'm sure some of you have already seen it, but there's a lot of cool things that are coming in. One that I'm particularly excited about is the acquisitions one click, which if you're using acquisitions now and you use EDI, you basically go to the vendor's website. So let's say Baker and Taylor uses TS360, Ingram uses iPage, and right now you physically download the file of mark records, where you go to an FTP site and download those mark records, and then you manually import them into Koha. This feature allows you to basically one click. So we set up a SFTP server, which sends the records from Baker and Taylor, Ingram, or Midwest tapes into Koha, and it builds your basket, and it's not a snooze fest. It is awesome. And it's amazing, and it saves time, and it gets them in there. And so I'm going to shout out Barbara and Rhonda, who I've been talking to for a long time. Barbara, who has tested for us, and we're very, very excited to finally be able to do this. So we have successfully tested this thanks to Cuyahoga with Baker and Taylor, Midwest Tapes, and Ingram. Cuyahoga tirelessly tested. Christy can attest to that. Going back and forth with these vendors to make it happen. So it is a true time saver, and I am truly excited about it. There's lots of also cool booking features that are coming in, bundles. There's lots of things I'm excited about, but I'm not going to hog the whole time, and I'll let my colleagues talk about what they're excited about.
Mac isn't a snooze fest, and I do love an improvement that makes acquisitions smoother and easier so that it can be less of a perpetual headache. It's all good. It's all gravy. I put two Circ things in the chat that I'm really excited about, and they're both like just such baseline nice things that should have happened 1,000 years ago, and I'm glad they're happening now. One is a global system preference that makes always show checkouts, always show. Like most libraries have a little bit of jQuery doing that right now, and that breaks periodically, and it's frustrating. So like great to just make that do. And the other one is so exciting. It's the option to make it so that once you have said once on a patron, I'm going to check out to this person, even though they have fines, it just lets you keep checking out to them until you're done. Which is, again, just like that's been such a pain point, like a minor thing, but a persistent thing. And I'm glad to see it fixed.
It makes it harder to shame patrons. Yeah, that's not a good thing. They should be
We can give
ashamed of
you
their
a quote for
fines.
developing a special shame plugin to add shame back into the ILS.
Just the audio file. Shame.
I wanted to make a comment on the new look of Bugzilla. Bugzilla has been upgraded. So if you haven't been there in a while, Bugzilla is the new version of Bugzilla, and it looks awesome. It looks less late 2010s and more modern. I don't know if it works any better, but it certainly looks nicer.
Yeah, I think it works the same. Catrina shouted out table settings in item search as a first step toward a whole bunch of other cool item search stuff.
I just wanted you to say item search and have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, it exists. People use it. Juliet asked about the configuring the long overdue cron to be branch specific. I don't know what to tell you about it other than yeah, that's gonna happen. And then you can do that. Did you have questions?
I probably will have questions, but
So the idea there being that you could have by branch decide how long something goes until it gets marked lost. Is that the idea there?
Yeah.
That'll be nice.
Yeah, I was confused because it, just from the wording, it made it sound like you can like include or exclude a branch from the cron. So I'm wondering how that works if you want to have different settings for different libraries.
Yeah. My guess would be that you would end up putting in several instances of the cron, like here's the one for the main branch that includes main, excludes all others, runs at 72 days. I don't know why 72. And then the other branches all go at 90.
Would be nice because we've been having staff just run a report every morning.
Pulling up that cron to look at how it is phrased.
I appreciate that that will be an option, but God, I hate to think of what would happen if my 50 libraries all heard that they could set it differently. I would have 50 different crons running, and I don't need that. So
Yeah,
I appreciate the flexibility, but the flexibility also scares the hell out of me. So
as an administrator, that was kind of my thought as well. It's like, oh, this is what people have been asking for. Also, oh, I don't want to keep track of that.
Is there an option to make it optional?
just keep them ignorant. That's
Yeah.
my option.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what my plan is, just to get it turned on just for us, and then they all can ask for it if they want it. So
And it's all in the command line, so it's very optional. Your patrons are unlikely to be scouring the Koha command or cron jobs.
Looks like Catrina's finding some additional bugs. Do you want to speak to any of those? One of those seems pretty obvious, but
Yeah, there's actually, you can export your inventory results to a CSV now, which is pretty nice rather than trying to capture that page at the end of an inventory. And then I really like 29079. You're gonna, like, right now in the holds queue, like all the title, author information is all jumbled together in one column. There's table, like right now in 2411, it will have its own column so that you'll be able to use your table settings and maybe get rid of your custom reports for running holds queues because you're trying to work around all of that being in one column now.
that was one of the main reasons why we didn't like using the holds queue, was because of all that extra. But now my staff are used to my really pretty ordered report, so I'm not sure they'll want to change.
Speaking of holds queue, I ran across something yesterday that I thought, oh, I need to bring this up at the next meeting. To head person put a hold on an item, and then when the book came back, we tried to check it out to the patron, came up with a 500 error. And I tried everything I could do to get rid of that, updated, rebooted. Eventually oh yes, and I couldn't delete that item because, well, got 500 error. I eventually made a duplicate item, marked, excuse me, marked the original one lost and suspended the hold, which let us check it out, but it's still hanging around. Does that happen to anyone?
That sounds like it's got to be bad data in either your hold or your item, and probably your hold.
Yeah, well, it did say duplicate ID, but I'm not sure where the duplicate is.
Yeah, that could be like an auto increment problem. If you look on your About Koha page, maybe you've got like a reserve ID that's ended up doubled up.
Okay. I think I'm logged in now.
I feel like for a while there, it was always holds missing a branch code, but I think that kind of whatever was making those holds got itself fixed.
Yeah, we do maybe 1 or 2 holds a year, so it's not something I'm really familiar with.
And your plaque logs should probably tell you like real specifically what it choked on, like what bit of code it was working on when it died, which might tell you like I was thinking about a branch code or I was thinking about an expiration date.
Ah, here we go. The following IDs exist in both tables reserves and old reserves. 5, 10, 11, 9, 8, 12, 13, 14. Okay. I can try getting rid of those.
Yeah, that should do it.
If you can tell me how to do it in 1 sentence or less. I'll figure it out.
What I would do would be just to delete the numbers out of the old reserves table, to just delete those rows. But I don't know that that's the tidiest, best way to do that.
You've seen the picture in one of my presentations with the wrench next to a nail.
Oh yeah, just do it. Just log into your database and delete those rows.
So if it's like the same, this is really probably gonna sound weird or slow, but if you made a new hold on the same item, wouldn't that give it a new reserve ID?
It's
Not the issue here.
Yeah, it's a stupider problem than that. Somewhere
Okay.
along the line, the database lost track of the fact that it had already used that, like, it's supposed to be counting up incrementally as it makes a new hold. Each
Mhm.
new hold gets the next available ID number. And somehow it used the same number multiple times. And I have no sense of what would have made it do that. But it's, yeah, more about how this stuff got stored in the database than like how many holds there are.
There was a bug a few years ago where those things were being repeated accidentally. And so you probably are just encountering a situation, Fred, where something that happened 4 years ago is now affecting what's happening today.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I don't think I've done a complete fresh reinstall at any point, so I guess I started out with 3.12. Probably things hanging around.
Just an update where I think it seems like Tomas is running a little bit more behind than he thought he would be, so we can talk more about the next release or current issues, current bugs that people would like to highlight until he's able to join us.
I think there are a couple features I'm looking forward to in 24.11, specifically there's bug 28924. I'll get it into the chat here, but doesn't sound like we're in a hurry, so find it and 28924. Here we go. So it's one we sponsored where it lets you choose by patron category what the fee threshold is for barring patrons from checking out. And the specific use case we have at our system is there's kind of a lower fee threshold for just your regular borrower, but then we have teachers and schools that have accounts where if you lose 2 books, you're over your typical threshold. But you know, so we would want to give them a little bit more grace. So that's going to be big for our educators to have.
I'm just scrolling through the release notes and I noticed that there's because I know we have a couple libraries that are interested in doing bookings that will be there'll be a report on the circulation module.
It does seem like a thing that bookings really need to be like broadly useful. So hooray.
Sorry, what's this one about bookings?
We'll grab that bug.
33736.
Lizette has joined us. Do you have anything you're looking forward to in the next release, Lizette? We're just kind of picking through it right now.
Translate that as we ran out of things to talk about, and Bob saw fresh meat walk into the room.
Yes, let me pull up my list of things I'm excited about.
Another big
That's a good
circulation
one.
slash patron thing is Koha is adding a preferred name field. That's a thing to think about, and think about how you want to use it and what you want to say in your notices and stuff. There is some configuration there, sort of basic Koha style. If you don't want to think about this at all, a new field will exist in your patron records and you'll never see it or think about it. But if you want to use it, it gives you an option to store a preferred name in addition to first name. And Koha will always show you that preferred name as you move around the staff interface, but then you have your choice of which thing you put into notices. If you have someone who wants to be called one thing in the library, but addressed a different way in their legal mail.
Does it refer to them as their preferred name on the OPAC?
It does.
That's
probably
would be,
configurable, but by default, it will show them the preferred name, users the preferred name all over the interface.
that
But
would
the
be
other name
great.
is there for notices.
Is there a
It's really confusing because we kept going back and forth which thing we're putting in the other and which one in their actual first name. So now having it defined is great.
That bug.
And how it works is if there's nothing in the other name field, it copies the first, in the preferred name field, it copies the first name field in so that shows. Which is also why if you pull up a sandbox right now, it doesn't have first names showing because the patches work really well for if you're updating, but not if you're spinning up a new box with the Koha test data. So if you see that, that's why. But if you go in and edit a patron and then save it, their name will show up. Just so you don't freak out like I did yesterday when I was like, where's all my first name data? I'm very excited for 29079, which you might have talked about before I got in. Make bib information in the holds queue customizable.
We did talk about that. And then also I see that they've made the shelving location its own column too, which is the one that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
So
and I'm really about the ILL custom, the generic form in ILL.
Yes.
So now that I got Lizette all geared up and she's talking about all these new things, we do have Tomas here. So I'm going to pause that discussion and introduce our guest. Tomas comes
Hi,
to us
everyone.
from Argentina, and he is the I don't know what your title is exactly, but you run Tech Solutions and which is a Koha development company. So I'll turn it over to you, Tomas. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah, where do I start? My name is Tomas. You know me, probably. I've been working in Koha for a lot of time. I also work as a contractor for Bywater Solutions. It's been 8 years already. I run a support company in Latin America, and we have other projects, not just Koha. They all target libraries. We have DSpace, we have a open journal system, which is which used a lot in academics. And yeah, we also develop Koha and DSpace. That's what we do. We got one implementation for Aspen and waiting for another one next year. And we have a dedicated developer for the Aspen Discovery project. Questions? What do you want me to?
What are the
tell you?
some of the things you've been working on lately?
As part of my bywater related activities, for example, I've been working on making the Docker images for Koha a reality. So we have more deployment options. That's happened in the last couple of weeks. I spent fairly good amount of time. And the last years, I've been in charge of the REST API for the Koha project, advising other developers and also developing it. Standardizing things is a huge effort, and you usually need to let people know the guidelines, etc. That's been work in progress for a lot of time, but we have a fairly good amount of guidelines to follow now, which is great. It is also good that people are picking with it and using new tools for using the API in the user interface, not just external system integrations. And that has driven my will to work on that, to be honest. Like being able to promote new developers coming up with new tools they want to try the project. So fresh people, fresh ideas. For me, it was all about having a standard API and making it accessible, documented, etc., which is what we accomplish. There's always room for improvements, but really, we're in good shape in that regard.
I know another project you've worked on, because we've talked a lot about it, you and I, is the interlibrary loan. And I know that's not something everybody is using, but I know some of us are here.
Yeah. I've been focused the last few years on a specific plugin for interlibrary loans. We're talking about the InReach plugin, which is massive, like thousands and thousands of lines of code. It made us actually make a lot of enhancements to Koha itself, because the needs it had weren't contemplated in the original implementation. There is actually a work group right now talking about the next generation for this code. And all we've done with Lisette and Andrew previously on that plugin is really, I think it's going to be key on this development. Like a lot of user input, a lot of use cases that others didn't even consider. I'm really excited about it, to be honest. I've also helped other library in Germany with a small ILL module, but that didn't include anything special in that regard. It was just reusing the existing tools.
Yeah, I hope that's easy, because we're, as you know, not everybody knows, but Tomas knows, Lizette knows, we're eventually going to be moving off the InReach to another, an open source software, actually, for our interlibrary loan. So hopefully it'll be very easy to translate some of that work you've already done for that new plugin, for that new open source system that we're eventually moving to. I have no updates though on when it all is still very misty and cloudy when that's going to happen.
Yeah. I think the eReach implementation is fairly complete, and the workflows they use are probably too complex. So taking all the unneeded stuff from that plugin and tweaking the endpoints will be straightforward. I'm always optimist, so don't listen to me. There is also the koha to koha ILL module that needs to be revisited. I really wish we had the time to and the resources to implement it into core. PTFS Europe has done a great job making the ILL modules pluggable in a different way as plugins, not just for convenience, but also in the code. Like it's going to be a better experience for developers as well. And I think having the freeform, the original name freeform backend into core creates a good path for doing the same with the koha to koha module.
My other question for you that I'm curious about is less to do with development work. I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the koha community in South America, maybe Argentina specifically, looks like, because I don't think I know hardly anything about that.
Right. Back in 2009, no, 2007, we created the Koha Spanish-speaking community list in Yahoo. We moved to the community, right, a few years ago, but it has around 500 members and it's quite active. It is usually a place to announce new releases, security releases, and answer people needs. I believe the most active members are already on Mattermost, for what it's worth. We have yearly meetings in Argentina. It's a small group. It's 15 to 20 people. It is usually held by any of our customers. We usually at universities hosting the event, and it's usually a couple days in which we share some knowledge, talk about the new release, and answer technical questions if there are any developers. It is quite common that universities send their IT people to these events so they can answer some of their doubts. And we are seeing a big growth in the business. I mean, Argentina is in the middle of a big crisis that is going to last a couple of years. So we're not talking about big money or anything. Just the libraries are asking for our support more often. We have 3 more each quarter, something like that, which is a lot for us.
Are you the only support company in Argentina?
There are a couple individuals that present themselves as companies, but just that. Teke is a 9 people company. Most of them are part-time, and we have 2 full-time persons. Yeah. One of the part-times is me.
Does anybody else have any questions for Tomas?
What was one of the first things you started working on for Koha?
For Koha, good question. My first, I was appointed as the project manager at the faculty, the philosophy and humanities faculty in my city, and they were worried about the university taking on Millennium, I think, or one of those proprietary systems. And I was an open source advocate when I was in college. So they asked me to implement Koha as a test, only to display it can be used. Once I started with that, I got contracted by the central administration of the university to offer Koha to all faculties. And my first problem was that many of the deployment tools we had by then, I'm talking about 2009, were very manual, and we had to automate it for a big user base. So my first commits are related to packaging and helper tools for administrators, because that's where I come from. I was sysadmin. So that was the first thing I did. And the first thing I'm proud of was that at some point, I learned that developers were using something called plack that I didn't know what it was about. That there was chatter on IRC about it, but something developers used. And when I learned that it made our library, it could make our librarians' lives better, I did anything I could to get it automated into the packages. And that's what I'm proud of. It was a good contribution.
All right, thank you so much, Tomas. I really appreciate hearing your perspective on from a completely new continent that we haven't had anybody represent yet in these meetings. So thanks for joining us. If you want to hang out, we were just talking about the next release, and if there's anything that you're excited about in this upcoming release.
Thank you, Bob, and everyone. It's a pleasure for me to attend. I keep hanging here.
Now that it seemed like Lizette was building up a head of steam with all sorts of things to talk about before I interrupted her. So I will resume your you can please resume your thoughts.
Yeah, so the generic form in ILL getting pushed into Koha is something I'm really excited about. Tomas talked about it a little bit, but it's like the next step towards being able to do a lot more built into Koha ILL wise, and it also makes testing ILL bugs a lot more accessible, because before, to test, you had to, even if you were just trying to test like a bug with a table, the ILL table, you had to go in and get like a backend set up and installed, and it was a real headache. So this is gonna make even just testing ILL related bugs a lot easier, which will help move other ILL things forward as well. Also very excited for 14180. Make always show checkouts immediately a global setting. Because some libraries just always want it on, and right now jQuery is the only way to do that, and as we know, jQuery breaks sometimes, so building it into Koha so we don't have to worry about that jQuery breaking is always a plus. Add in patron messages to the batch modification tool. That's something we get asked about a lot, both for adding new messages, but also deleting messages. So if you're trying to clean up your patron accounts, much easier to do with that. That's 27123. See, I have a whole list, Bob. Just had to pull it up. Allowing checkout fine limit to be determined by the patron category. So you can limit differently based on different categories. That's another thing we get questions about a lot. And especially helpful for like staff and academic libraries that have a lot of like course reserve things, and things like that. That can be really helpful. And probably the other one I'm most excited about is 28575. Add the ability to choose when if a lost fee is refunded based on how long ago it was paid. So if it was paid like 3 years ago and then the item is returned, you can be like, no, you're not getting a refund for that.
Forgot about that one. I'm excited about that one. I've worked in a few libraries where that was the policy, and I'm so excited to see Koha able to enforce the thing that the library wants to enforce. Makes that way easier.
Yeah. Yeah, my old library, we didn't turn on refunds for lost items, partially because it couldn't tell it, because we had a pretty limited window in which you could refund them.
Yeah.
Um,
Then you're playing
and it
that fun
was,
game where you send your cataloger a report every morning of the things that they need to delete today. Because if they don't delete those items today, somebody's going to get a refund. Which
yeah.
just makes that not a thing. Hooray.
So that's what I'm most excited about.
I'm seeing a bug that we apparently co-sponsored that I don't remember and I don't quite understand what it does. We're listed as a co-sponsor.
What is it?
It is, I'm putting it in it's recalls. Let me scroll to the top. Recalls, notices, and messaging preferences.
Oh, sure. Well, thanks for giving back to the community there, Bob.
That's generous of me to do it, apparently, while I was unconscious or something. Maybe it was just a long time ago. I just wiped it from my memory.
It's nice though. Make recall notices a patron messaging preference.
What's a recall?
A recall, not a lot of people use them. They need to be developed out a little bit more, but that's when somebody has an item checked out and another patron is able to request that item get returned. It's usually an academic library thing where like you're checking a book out for the whole year. But if
Yeah,
somebody else wants, they can ask that it come back early.
If you've ever been in graduate school at a university that has recalls, you get into recall fights with other graduate students where they check something out and you need it, so you recall it, and then 2 weeks later they return it. And as soon as they return it and you get it, they put a recall on it so that they get it back in 2 weeks, and it becomes a fun way to spend your time.
Graduate students? What about professors?
Oh yeah, they're in on it too. You have recalls from professors and graduate students and all kinds of crazy stuff.
My college allowed
Passive aggressive.
staff or professors to check out for the entire semester.
At the University of Idaho was an entire year, so.
I worked at a corporate library 2 summers that most of what they did was electrical engineering standards. And the checkout period was like 50 years. Like we just asked for them back if you left or if somebody else needed them. And we had that problem a few times where someone would be like, instead of saying, hey, we need more of this because this is like a standard a bunch of departments are using, they'd be like, recall fights until we noticed and would be like, we can just get another one if it's gonna be that kind of a day.
Is 2411 going to become the new LTS version?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, will it be immediately or I don't remember.
I think 2211 is going to be around for another year.
This isn't about the new release, but has anybody successfully put the hold expiration date into an SMS message? We have a message that goes out close to when the hold expires. And I cannot seem to get the date to display in that SMS message. I can get it to display in the email just fine, but not the SMS message.
We've really gone away from the Koha SMS messaging just because it seems like more providers are clamping down on using that as allowing you to do that. So we've had a bunch of reports about those failing a lot more frequently. So
yeah, I just had a conversation with one of our vendors, SpringShare, and they have SMS set up in a similar way where they go out via email, and they're having to reinvent that functionality, and they're actually going out through, they're doing some testing through Twilio right now, but they're having to move over to that method because, yeah, the email stuff is just going away completely. And I'm wondering if that functionality just needs, there needs to be a bug out there to just remove that functionality from Koha at this point, because it's going nowhere and it's going to be pulled back as much as possible.
Well, it's going nowhere in the US. We don't know what the situation is in other countries. So that's something to consider there. The reason that it's going out in the US is because of a change in the FCC regulations a few years ago, where the FCC told phone companies they were no longer required to support this service. So
at the very least, it might be worth noting on the setup for that, that it's restricted in the US.
Rhonda, returning to your question, I don't know why that would be able to pull a date into the email version, but not into the SMS version. That's
Yeah.
very goofy.
Yeah, because I tried both the toolkit template, you know, what did we call them? Something about owls? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Tipsy owls.
Tipsy owls, that's what it was. And I tried the hungry alligator version of it, and neither one of them gave me the wonderful date that I was looking for.
I'm trying to pull up the library on the Koha wiki to see what is in the defaults, but it's now the Koha wiki isn't loading for me, so I don't know what's going on there. So
Rhonda, is that the hold available for pickup notice?
It is the hold waiting notice, you know, so there's a hold pickup, you know, notice when it first gets triggered, but then if they haven't picked it up until, you know, it's like ours is 7 days, you know, so if they haven't picked it up by 6 days, we send them another note that morning and say, come and pick it up. So we had the note just say, pick it up tomorrow. And then we hit Thanksgiving, and tomorrow didn't make sense because there were 2 days added to the expiration date.
Sure.
I don't know, there was some stuff there. And then of course the customers call and say, why am I getting 2 different dates?
I'm looking here. I found I got the wiki to finally open, and the code for that message is called hold reminder.
Yes.
And it looks like the message body has the hold waiting date in the default messages, but it doesn't have the hold expired date. And so that's probably what's going on, is we probably need to figure out what's the proper template toolkit to get the hold expiration date in there. But if you've got it going out in the email, I don't see why it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
Why it wouldn't be the same template toolkit information. Yep. The only other thing I can think of is maybe what they've got here has hold waiting date, pipe, Koha dates.
Yep, that's.
And so I'm wondering if maybe it needs a use something at the beginning.
Mm.
Use dates or use something. I don't remember what they all are at the beginning of those template toolkit.
Yeah. I can check, see. I know I've seen that use koha dates or something in other ones,
Yeah.
but our email doesn't have that.
Yeah, and really it
Works
should be
fine.
the same syntax between the two. There's-
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be exactly the same.
Yeah. So that's what's got me confused.
Sounds
Yeah.
like time to send in a ticket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like a bug.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hold expiration date, pipe, koha dates. Yeah, those are the two things I tried.
Right. Thought of one other bug that I'm very excited about that I don't know the bug number, but the show default notices button in the notices. I think that's in 2411. It must be because we've been using it in the sandboxes for a while. So if you are editing a notice, you can view the default notice without having to like go find it in the wiki. It just loads it out of the installer data, which can be really nice either for you can just copy it in, like there's a button to copy it in and overwrite your template, or if you're like, I changed this and then I forgot what the correct syntax was for the template toolkit, you can just go grab it out of the default notice right there in Koha. So that's going to be really nice.
All right, well, we are a little bit past time, so I don't want to hold anybody up. Thanks for attending this meeting and many meetings throughout the year. Thanks to Tomas for joining us. And I'll just say it was a pleasure to run these meetings this past year. So thanks for all your contributions.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Is this the passing of the torch part of the show?
We non-ceremonially just discussed it earlier, but
On 3, everybody sing your favorite ceremonial passing of the torch song. I'm not going to count it though, it's dangerous.
And if anybody sings Wicked, they're in deep shit.
You
The
don't
only
think
song
that's
I can remember
popular
whenever
choice?
anybody asks me for a song is In Heaven There Is No Beer, the polka. So
Well, I could sing a song about a Foley catheter that needs changing, but I won't.
okay, ending on a strange note, but we do that sometimes. We will, for those sticking around for the conference committee meeting, we're gonna take 5 minutes. So we'll just come back here. For everyone else, it was great to see you. We'll see you next month.